Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
Aren't they cute?
they are.
These are Adam's children.
4 of them? Good for you.
And they're still. How'd you do that?
Trust me, that was one of 50 that were taken
That
like
moment.
1 minute.
See that?
That was the closest one to having them all look at me.
And how many boys?
3 boys and a girl. She's the youngest. Apparently while my wife was upstairs getting ready to take one boy to baseball practice and one to pre-K registration, they went and got Tupperware full of noodles out of the fridge and proceeded to throw them all over the living room.
Oh, that was nice.
So I called her and she's like, I just came down getting ready and Noodle-mageddon happened in the living room.
So they learned that, or did they come by that behavior from you? or-
Oh, yes, definitely.
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Brendan Fontaine.
Oh, the face.
Don't have any
Yes.
audio though.
What's he talking about?
Yes.
No.
He's ranting.
Animated, look at him.
Are you trying to get the?
How are you? Good, how about you? God. Been excited about the dance we saw?
Yeah, one of the tech people's here, Auburn, can you go?
Oh my goodness, Lydia's so
Well, I
sweet,
can.
though.
Yeah. He doesn't need windows. Well, that's the goal.
Had another one. She's so spoiled, that's all.
Well, I was gonna say, I think
Like what?
I'm done.
This is a draft.
Right.
He's gonna redo it.
Not from the get-go. That's why they said never, again, she was bad. He asked me, I don't know, she was a couple months old, he goes,
First of all, we're on the air, just so you know, okay?
watch your home.
FYI. Not that,
I said, I told him she was, I don't know how.
be
big-
transparent, we're
You know,
on
she'd only
live.
sleep.
It's coming up.
They were ready to buy the extra large one, and they finally got it.
Thank you for coming, Scott.
Oh, more than welcome.
Tracked your wife down in the grocery store,
So,
then I tracked
any
you down
idea
at the
how I
field.
can play this with audio?
If you want to find me, that's where I am.
I
most of the
know.
time.
Her screen.
I just do
Release
that and
from
open
noon
it.
to
Yeah.
4:35.
There's no audio.
That's
I
weird.
don't know.
Benefit, Adrian left the grocery cart there and left with her. I mean, it's,
I've done that one before.
Oh, what about this?
Yeah. That's-
Oh, is it muted on the computer?
not half as bad as,
Oh, I think you got it.
that, but no, she's worse than he.
Okay?
Well, I guess.
A whole lot of nothing.
Leonard, no, he has a comedy show.
She's just,
Excited.
Just
What?
wants me to down.
How are you?
Yeah, the only person I heard from was,
Some water, do you
Leonard.
like some water?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
God is gonna drink that off.
A lot of water, but not
Water
that
wall.
much.
iCloud account.
That water's gone. I
Oh,
bought
you're
it.
fine. I got enough room to,
Right.
I guess we can just hold the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Good enough. Yeah, all right. Thanks.
did you put it in Google Doc? Open it in Google Doc.
I didn't, but the problem is whatever video player it's defaulting to.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just watch it on the phone. We'll just-
Yeah, cute.
Thank you.
Goes by fast.
Sure does.
Hot school.
seems like yesterday.
That's right, you never know.
Really?
Got a few years before that happens.
Courthouse searching for him. He's a little bigger.
I could use another bedroom or two. And a man cave. Sorry.
you know,
Someone
text
might
that they have a
find
house.
Never know. Say it a little louder.
Are you willing to spend?
Adam Hansen is now looking.
Price between them. Okay. Welcome. Greg, you're on.
Okay.
It's your show.
Excellent. So just to recap, I've been working with the team here on this meeting tonight. Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
And then we'll have introductions.
That's what I was going to do, yep.
Okay.
So I've been working with a team, and I work at Marshall Communications in Augusta. I've met some of you from one of the prior meetings, and I'm account supervisor there. I handle a wide range of clients, but one of the projects that I'm working on right now is obviously the new high school. And we've put together a plan of what we're going to do and what it's going to take, so you're going to get to hear a lot of those elements tonight. So before I dive deeper into the presentation, I do want to go around the room because it helps me to figure out who might play a role in some of the activities that I'm going to be suggesting tonight. So if we could kick off, that'd be awesome.
I'm Brandy McFadden.
Billy,
I
you
teach
can
at
join
Edward
us tonight.
Little High School.
Okay.
We have work for you too.
And if everyone could talk right into the mics loudly, that would be great. Because people have problems hearing it at
Grab
home.
that one then. Just a committee member.
An important. There you go.
Bonnie Hayes, I'm a school committee member.
Peter Creighton, city manager.
Beth Favreau, community member.
Billy Hunter, Director of Support Services.
Katie Cronin, superintendent.
Holly Lasagna, Ward 1 City Councilor.
Scott Whalen, Edward Little Grandstand Club.
And Scott Anier, principal of Edward Little.
Perfect.
Adam Hansen, business manager for the school department.
Awesome. Very cool. And so as I said, we'll let some people come on in. We got a couple. Harriman team here. Perfect.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Strangers.
It feels like it's been so long.
Do you guys want to sit together? Are you sure?
That's much. Sometimes separation's okay. They went for that real quick.
We were just finishing up introductions for the broadcasting audience. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves like the others did.
Mark Lee, architect with Harriman.
Lisa Solwin, architect with Harriman.
Perfect. I'm sure that most of everyone is familiar with them by now because they've been doing such great work. But like I was saying, tonight is about the building committee and some of the projects and ideas that came from a plan that we've been working on that will highlight the campaign, essentially to allow people to vote yes on the question and some of the highlights. We've worked on a message map that you may have seen. That has been part of the work of the plan. We have a version of that tonight that is updated that you'll see, as well as a blank version. There's going to be a bit of an exercise that we'll all do together to highlight some of the points that we want to make as it relates to the certain questions that'll be on the ballot and some of the things you've heard. A lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is some of the things that we've heard in the community, the rumors, the questions. We're going to identify a lot of those things so that we can work together to figure out the best answers and the most educational answers we can give so that people are aware of what we're talking about. And it can be everything from parking to the turf field to the 1,200 seats that we need at the auditorium. So all those things we're going to touch on a little bit tonight and through some way or another. So I wanted to just share the goals really for the presentation here tonight, so you can see this, is to go over what we're doing when it relates to public relations and marketing efforts, and then also discuss the timeline, which is obviously quickly approaching here for the June 11th vote. We're also going to address some of the highest priorities from a plan that we've been working on, coming up with all kinds of ideas, and then we've worked together to try to figure out what's realistic from a budget standpoint, from some of the activities that have to happen over a longer period of time or a shorter period of time. We'll work together on those deadlines and also some of the costs that would be involved in some of the activities that will help the campaign. We're also going to talk about ideas. Tonight is a great opportunity to talk about your ideas, some things that you might have. We're also going to talk about the people that will execute those ideas. There's a lot of great people at this table. I know that we can all get this done, but we are going to need to take some responsibility tonight. That's going to be a theme throughout the presentation, to be able to get things done and to be able to move things forward for our timeline. We did introductions earlier. I'll let you introduce.
I'm David Young.
David Young. Excellent. Perfect. All right. With that being said, I'll get started here. I just want to give people an overview of the plan, because I think that's important so you can understand what some of the goals are. Obviously, we're educating residents about the positive economic impact the new school will have for the city. We want to also create a successful campaign that will have primary and secondary messages to win that vote on June 11th. We also want to measure the sentiment. So this is important. So if there are positive vibes out there, positive comments we've heard, we want to highlight those. If there are negative comments out there, we want to be able to address them and properly educate someone on what maybe something they're not thinking about, or a different budget number that they heard that somebody else heard. It gets passed around the rumor mill. So that's important. We also want to identify some key influencers in the community. All of you are influencers in some way or another. There also are other people that we know are going to be critical and also probably are very passionate about this project. They're not at this table tonight, okay? But our goal tonight is going to be to identify those people, how we can get in touch with them, and how we can empower them to be part of what we're all trying to do. We're also going to talk about target audiences, how we're best going to reach those target audiences and who they are. So you'll see some of those people that you think are going to be part of who we need to reach, and you may have ideas as to how we can reach them. So that's something we'll talk about. And then also creating a consistent brand and messaging. Some of you may have seen the campaign logo at this point. That is going to be a really important piece of what we do, because we want that on everything, because anybody can put up a sign on their lawn and say, vote yes. But when we have a unified brand, that is really going to help everything that we're doing. So I encourage you, when you see something, when you do something, to get that logo on it, because that's a symbol or an emblem that basically says, yes, this is the building committee working on this together, and we approve this messaging, or we put this yard sign in the ground, and they'll know that it came from the building committee. And then we also want to identify spokespeople. We're going to get into a situation where there's going to be op-eds that are going to be an opportunity to write in the local papers, and there's going to be a chance to write letters to the editor. We need people to start to kind of step up and say they're going to be putting their name on, yes, please vote yes for the new high school. I'm going to have you just quickly introduce yourself so I can know who you are, and the team watching on TV can as well.
My name is Brian Fuller. I'm the president of the Edward Little Music Association.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for...
Poland Road with it.
Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. All right. Going to the objectives. So we always try to put measurable objectives against any type of public relations or marketing effort. And when you look at this, this is about getting more than 50% of the vote to be able to get the referendum question approved. We want to increase engagement on Facebook by 10%. There's going to be a lot of people in the community that are on Facebook that are in the demographic that we are talking about. And that really, in my mind, is going to be that age 33 to 55 demographic. There's also going to be demographic on there. You'd be surprised. It does start to skew older. We're seeing 55 to 65 is a growing age group on Facebook. So those are people that are very important to this campaign, and they've probably been longtime residents of Auburn. We also want to educate target audiences about when and where to vote. If they don't know where to go, if they don't know what they're voting for, then they're probably not going to vote. So it's very important that we can all get out there, spread the messaging about the need to vote. We can't take it for granted that people are going to vote yes. So I think that's an important message tonight. And then also we've been reviewing research from Harriman and some other sources to identify key issues, create messaging that will resonate with the audiences. Again, this gets back to several different pieces, everything from how much will my taxes increase, to what am I going to pay in taxes, to what is that new turf field going to do for me, to the seats in the auditorium, even the quality of the air conditioning. Do we really need air conditioning? I mean, all those types of things, we've taken a look at those, and that plays into some of the messaging that you'll see throughout the campaign. I also want to mention that this is meant to be an interactive presentation tonight, so if you have a question on any of these slides, feel free to chime in, ask a question, why that, or something else that you might have on your mind.
May I ask a question?
Go right ahead, perfect time.
So in terms of the objectives, one of the things that I don't see in here is the importance of educating people about what the ballot questions mean. And educating people that if they vote yes on one and no on two, what does that mean? And I'm not able to clearly articulate that, so it would be helpful, I think, for everybody to understand that, because there are really real repercussions if they vote no on two. Some people may think it's not a big deal. Two is more money, we don't need to spend the extra money, but they need to understand what that means.
I completely agree with you. And we've actually got this exercise tonight that I think will be really helpful with the message map that will drill deeper into that, because that is something that people are going to look at and they're going to anticipate, okay, well, if I voted for one, then I don't have to vote for the other. But they need to know what they're voting for. That gets back to people need to know when and where and how and what they're voting on. So the fact that we now have those questions, that is something that we put on the website so that people can start to digest it, because the last thing we want people doing is reading the question in the ballot. That's the worst thing that can happen, because then by that point they probably don't know what they're really voting for. So we need to make sure they know what they're voting for. So very good point.
And I would just chime in what a no vote on one has an implication for, because I've heard through the sentiment of out there in the world that we'll vote no on both of them and then everything will be okay.
Okay. Great. Well, we will definitely talk about that in the message map. I think that's a good point to bring up. So just some strategies as we look at the audiences that we want to reach in order to be able to reach the voters. Obviously, people 18 plus, men, women, parents of current high school students. They're going to be extremely passionate if they have especially younger ones coming up through the system. They also probably understand the value of an education. In my mind also, the value of an Edward Little education goes up. There is equity in having a new school. Oh, you went to Edward Little and all of a sudden there's a new high school. They're going to understand that the education, that the city values education. So I think that's important to note. Parents with future high school students, I would love to see some videos of young ones out there looking forward to going to a new high school. I think that would be a cool thing that we could do, a social media type of thing. So as we think about things tonight, think about if you know any families that might be future high school students or have anyone that might be willing to share their passion. It could be the parents, anything to share what they're looking forward to about the new high school. PTO members are going to be a big part of this. The engagement that we can get from the community and these leaders to be able to work with people that are passionate about this project is going to be better for us. The alumni, I think you've got a great alumni list. We've identified some in our plan, but I'd love to hear more ideas tonight for alumni that would love to see a new Edward Little because, again, they didn't have it. And what they might miss about not having it. So Brooke Reynolds would have loved to have played in a better gym. The opportunities are the things that she saw when she went to the next level. She wishes she could have had maybe, back in high school. So thinking about a competitive angle as well. Local business owners, obviously when we talk about the arts, when we talk about the theater, this is one, I know, hot topic, but the fact that this is going to bring more of an economic impact, I think, than some people might realize to this community is a huge attribute to this project. So I think that making sure we help get the message out to business owners of how this new school, whether they have kids or not, is going to benefit them. And then I also think school volunteers, now is a great time to engage with those volunteers that anybody who's ever said, oh, let me know how I can help, now's the time. and previous or new school community meetings. I know that some email addresses have been collected through some of those community meetings, and now's a good time for us to start working with that list. Community volunteers, again, YMCA, churches, etc., to help spread the word. This could be as simple as putting up a flyer. It could be more than that, and it could be them just, again, emphasizing to people what the new school will bring. And message points that we're going to talk about in this message map become critical. So that's what those strategies are about.
Oh, thank you. Sorry to keep interrupting.
Okay.
One of the things I know working with both hospitals and Bates College is that they really have trouble attracting people to come work both at Bates and at both hospitals because of not having a really good high school here.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one good example of that actually would be Augusta, where they had Coney come in, do a whole new high school, then they built that new hospital. So I can agree with what you're saying. That's a good point.
And when you're thinking of the alumni, there was a group of alumni that were 63, 64, 65 that had the new high school. Didn't have anything like this, and didn't have a cafeteria, and didn't have a gym. And those are the people that you might want to contact, that we might want to contact.
There you go,
too,
there you go, yeah.
Because they're old enough to remember and old enough to have a little extra pocket change.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that those people, I know that I've also heard some sentiment that, from some people, that people won't remember. I know that a lot of people in this city have a very good memory. And I know that there's a lot of people that know that when the original high school was built, it was not built to grow enough. And that's something I think that a lot of people, that message will resonate with them, is we can't make the same mistake twice. So that's a great point about the people that may have experienced that in the past. And so then the other thing that's important to note about some of the strategic elements, so obviously one of the major things was the website. We have to send people to a place where they can get the right information. So we've been able to do that at the new ELHS.org. We also have new ELHS.com, because a lot of people, when they think about a website, they just think about .com. So we have those. And one thing we're going to be doing, we're still working and adjusting this logo a hair for signage and things like that. I'm going to be working probably with Larry to get this so that we can have it say vote yes. Now that we have the questions, we'll be able to say vote yes, and we'll be able to have that website on the sign, so someone reads it, they can put it even in their phone. These days, people will use their phones. There's also other supporting messages that I've heard and that have been used on banners and things like that. Our future is here, our community wins with a new ELHS. These are all good secondary messages, but the primary message really needs to be simple. We need to think about it as, I like to explain it as you have to be able to explain this to a 7-year-old, and they have to be able to get it. And so it's our time is the primary slogan, because everyone is pretty much aware that the high school is very old. And you're also now at the top of the list. This opportunity doesn't come around, and it may not be there for a long time again, who knows. So it is literally our time, and we've selected the word our because this is about the community. This is not about one person making a decision. This is a community decision, and we feel strongly that everyone has an opportunity here when this new high school would be built. So then I also want to mention that we have a hashtag. There'll be a hashtag used for some of those that use social media, which is that hashtag new ELHS. And that, for anyone that's unfamiliar with hashtags, I do want to explain it, is that allows you to basically aggregate all of the messages or all the posts that are out there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., and they're all in one place. So if someone says, oh, I would love to be able to perform in a new performing arts center, hashtag new ELHS, then we can look at all the posts and see what people are saying, both positive and negative. Obviously, we're hoping for more positive, but that's something to keep in mind that will be out there as part of the campaign.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With a logo like that, is there a way to push both questions 1 and 2 more? Because someone could say, well, I'm going to vote yes on 1, I'm giving us a new EL. how do we push both questions?
And that may be a situation where it depends on the signage or the banner, the spacing. One thing that we want to try to avoid is confusion, and I think this is going to be a good thing to discuss tonight, is the 1 and 2 option, because we do need to make sure that people understand the value of voting yes on 1, and then if they vote on 2 no, what that impact is. So there will be situations, so like if we have a yard sign, for example, and we don't have enough room to make it visible as you drive by, to put vote yes on 1 and 2, it can kind of make it a little bit more cluttered. But if we've got a nice banner or something or spaced out, that'll be a good example of where we could expand that to be able to do that. But I'm also very happy to hear that we'll be voting, or the people will have the opportunity to vote yes on the question, because yes is a very powerful word, and it tends to really get people to want to move things forward. And so I think that resonates with people, especially that will be voting in this situation to try to move things forward.
Greg, I agree with Bill, is that we need to be sure that we say vote yes 1 and 2 on everything that we do on it. That's my feeling, is that we need to keep repeating that, vote yes 1 and 2 on it. So I think we need to figure out how we can say this, vote 1 and 2.
And one thing we can look at too as we adjust this is we can probably, I would say the room to work with would be to reduce the size of the new and the EL. And we would probably adjust this to probably say vote yes on 1 and 2, and we'd probably use an and sign to keep it nice and short.
Right.
And then we go June 11th maybe at the bottom.
Our message needs to be consistent, I think, is that if we're voting, if we say vote yes on 1 and 2, then we need to do it all the time.
Yep.
Because it takes how many times to ride by something?
Oh yes, they say at least 7 times, yeah,
Right.
to hear something, yeah.
So I think we need to be sure that we send that message, vote yes 1 and 2.
And this is something too that, because the questions did come out, and obviously the developments with the 2 questions, which I know was something that we all have played a part in, is that I think that we can definitely do that. And I think that based on what we're going to talk about, we need people to vote yes on 1 and 2. And I'm going to be curious to hear also what does happen if someone votes no on 2, how that impacts things. And that also then becomes part of our supporting messages. Like, are you aware if you vote no on 2, then this happens? And so that'll be something we can work out here tonight as well. So great points. So this is the timeline. This is a very condensed version of the timeline, but I thought it was things that are applicable to the building committee, so you can see what's been done, but also what's coming. So March was a lot of the plan development. We also went through the message map process, and then we did a content analysis. We also have obviously started some community outreach, working with the team to be able to be involved in the community meetings and some other things. Finalizing the question, we've been kind of in the loop on that and trying to see which way it was going to go. And then also writing some op-eds, engaging with community members. I've had some work done to be able to figure out who some influencers are, so we're going to already see that on this PowerPoint tonight. I've identified some people that I think would be really good to get in touch with. And then also May is going to be the actual writing of these op-eds. We're going to have some instructions tonight. If you do have people that you think would want to write an op-ed, I will empower you with this information tonight. And that's why we've put it also in this PowerPoint packet, so that you literally can have that information and get that to somebody that wants to do that. I also wanted to let you know I tried to identify support groups that might be able to help us, and I think that's another task here for the building committee tonight, is to try and work on finding groups or people, individuals, businesses, anybody that has a vested interest in this and that is willing to support in some way or fund some of these projects. It could be the yard signs, it could be to help produce videos, it could be the support from the sports boosters on the turf field, it could be the support of the music and arts, on drilling down on the theater and some of the needs there, because those messages are also going to be a little bit deeper than just voting yes on 1. The voting yes on 2 obviously is different, but people need to know why they need to vote yes on 2 as well. So that kind of gets back to your point there too, Bonnie, about that, is they need to know why. And then also distribution of materials. So we've come up with some strategies here tonight that you'll see that will empower people to be able to help, including a video that Adam has from a gentleman that we gave him the idea of what we wanted to do. And you'll be able to see exactly the type of viral campaign that we think can get started and then continue throughout the month of May and well up right until the vote, that I think will be very important. And then we're also going to be doing some media pitching and interviews. So for example, we're going to be working with some local media here to talk about turf fields. The benefit of turf fields, how the city over the river has a turf field and facility, and how that is a competitive advantage. For example, next week, it is going to rain every day. And there will be a lot of time lost for a lot of these athletes, and that's something we'll highlight as we get into this. We'll also be pitching radio stations to have people from the committee out there talking about why this is important and some of the benefits, obviously, of the new ELHS. And then also we're going to be talking about social media. This to me is a very important part of the campaign. It's cost effective and it's based on people's passion. And also comments and engagement. That's what works on social media. And we need to make sure the message is getting out there, and that's a great place to be able to do it. And videos are going to be key. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but on your Facebook feed, if you post a picture, you get probably less engagement than you do with a video. And parents out there, I think, would resonate with that as well. But it is important to have videos because it allows people to show their emotion and their passion, which I know a lot of people are very passionate about this project. And in June, we're going to continue with the media pitching, the interviews. This is where we really need to have those op-eds, those letters to the editors start to hit the papers, and we need to have that strong campaign presence on social media.
So we really have only 4 weeks
Oh, yeah.
to hit the road and get this all done.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yep. And
So I'm curious, when, on the previous slide, you mentioned about engagement in April. Just quickly, what has that been? So is that something we can potentially build on? Community outreach, engage with people, businesses? So have people been contacted? Do people?
There have been ideas discussed. We haven't been able to get, I don't believe, to, I think some work has been done, but I can let others speak to that, of what has been done. I know there are some ideas we talked about.
And we don't need to go into a lot, I just wasn't aware of.
Right, so signs like this went out all over. There were, I don't know how many businesses, but our secretary, this is a new logo. She added her grandson to it, okay? But we had boards, I think there were about 10 of them, and she went to all local businesses. I saw some of them hung up. We did posters, they were hung in businesses. So we had somebody go around the community before the straw poll. We've been waiting to update because the referendum wasn't set. That delayed things going back out. So she's in the middle of recreating the poster. We've been Exchange Club. We've talked at the Exchange Club. We've talked at Auburn Business Association. We've handed out flyers at 2 music, the All-City Band, the All-City Chorus, we handed out handouts. All-City Band I spoke at, right?
Yes.
One I spoke, one we also had a handout.
You got handouts for the straw poll.
Yeah, straw poll, that's right. So they've been hit.
Chamber event coming up.
Yeah, we have, we will be the spotlight at next Thursday's breakfast. So we will have a booth and we'll probably have a flyer that goes in the bags so that people can take those. So those are the kind of things we've been doing.
Can I ask a question? When does the balloting begin? Absentee ballots?
We're not there yet.
We're waiting to hear. Not official
The
yet.
the tight timeline on getting the questions done pushed that a little bit, but hopefully by next week, they may be available. So as soon as the city clerk knows or has those, we'll spread the word on that. Because that'll be a big part of the message also, is you don't have to wait till June 11th to vote.
Yeah.
So.
May I ask you, so are we trying to make sure that people who we think will vote on this go out and vote, or are we also trying to convince people who we think may be skeptical about?
I think you should get all your supporters to vote absentee.
Yes, but is that the focus is, I mean, I'm
So,
just,
yeah, I understand what you're saying, Holly, it's a good question. Is the idea of, are we going to try to convert some of the people that are the naysayers, that are the strong naysayers? In my mind, some of those people have already made their decision,
Yeah, I
okay?
agree.
There are going to be people that are on the fence, that are confused, that might not know. They are the people that, as I kind of identified in this other slide, was like, when do I vote? What am I voting on? We can't have them go to the certain type of person we're talking about that's on the fence, can't go to that ballot and go, I don't know about this. We need to make sure, to your point, Bonnie, is that they understand what the questions are, they understand what they're voting on, and how it's going to impact them. It's not necessarily about the impact or some of the proof points that we've come up with. It has to be how it impacts them, and that's for the fence person. Because I have strong confidence that the people that we know and that we've talked to that say they're going to vote yes are going to vote yes. But there's going to be a portion of people that we haven't been able to touch yet. And those are the people that are going to determine this vote. And that's why it's really important that we get clear messaging to them and hammer it home so that they can make that decision. So to your point, there are people that are going to vote that no, and they're just going to do that. Hey, if we gain one or two of those, great. If not, I feel like there's a strong enough pool from the sentiment that we've discussed that are educated on what this topic is about, and they would be leaning toward yes, but we can't let them get into the ballot booth and not know what exactly they're voting for.
In this timeline, is there a step to make sure our current seniors that are 18 vote?
Good point.
I mean, that's
So-
a huge pool, huge pool.
Yep, and I think that that would be a good place to work on when the absentee ballots come out, or even the education. Again, I'm also aware that there's a limitation to how much, if anything, really, that the school can do, okay? As a building committee, we have to take ownership of this, and we have to be able to say, okay, who's going to do something or make a flyer that's going to say, let's get it to the high school students so that they know that they need to vote if they're of age to be able to vote. And that'll be an important step. So yes, that gets along with kind of identifying these support groups that can help us kind of get that information out. So that is what that is. But that's also a very good point. So. I also wanted to mention some of these tools, getting back to our younger audience, right? So a lot of them are on social media, and they've obviously experienced what the high school is like. And when I say this, I think it's important to remember that when we talk about a brand or when we talk about a question, people oftentimes won't remember what was done or what was said, but they will always remember how it made them feel. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to be in this current high school that don't want other students to go through this. And I think that that's why they will be passionate about sharing, please vote yes. You know, our students, my brothers, my sisters, et cetera, deserve a new high school. And I think that that's an important piece of this younger generation. They, I think, also are, I think, more in tune with some of politics. I think they're starting to realize, especially as we look at the political scene, that it's important to be active in your community. And I think that if we can do this right, I think that you're gonna see people at a younger age come out to vote. So this here is designed to be social media friendly, so making social media icons that have the campaign slogan. How many people have maybe seen on Facebook, you see somebody change their profile to the Boston Red Sox, for example, right, when they're in the World Series, that kind of thing. We're gonna be creating icons that allow people to say, vote yes on 1 and 2, and have this logo so that people know, oh wow, that person's voting yes. The idea is we want people out there seeing this on Facebook going, oh my gosh, look at all the people that are going to vote yes. How can I not vote? That's the type of feeling that we're going to be using here with these social media icons. Also, again, going back to the rendering of the new school, captions and everything that Harriman has put together is very valuable. I was talking earlier a little bit with some of you about basically what it means if someone can see it. If they can see what the new school is going to look like, that makes a huge difference. Versus them having to visualize it, it's different. If they can see it physically, that makes a huge difference in their decision making. So we're going to be working on making sure we highlight even that, the entrance to the high school that I know was designed. How many people people saw it and they were like, oh, we're going to have a white building, right? Well, all of a sudden it became real and they started looking at it differently and they realized that this was an opportunity to have a new high school. So the thing is, we're going to design these images to the right sizes and you'll be able to access those so that you can have those and they'll be available. The other thing too is this is the viral campaign that Adam alluded to. He's got a video. We actually have somebody that's done this video. But the idea is we all remember the ice bucket challenge, right? Where someone would dump an ice bucket on their head. It was for ALS. And a lot of times people didn't even know why they were doing it. You know what I mean? But I think that was a really strong campaign. It was one of the first viral campaigns that really worked. What we need to do is we need to customize that type of campaign and the type of passion that people have in this community and allow them to share it. And we're giving them a vehicle here and instructions on how to do it versus just, hey, why don't you put a video on your Facebook page about why you want the new high school, right? That's not as much of a call to action or an ask that we can get instead of actually outlining for people, okay, use your cell phone, record a video of yourself, share your verbal vote that I'm voting yes, the 3 reasons or more why you think it's time. Again, we're going to go back to our brand and the slogan of why it's time for a new ELHS, and then post the video to your social media accounts, use the hashtag, and then challenge 3 or more people or a business even to do the same thing, and people will tag them. That's how you'll encourage others. Or you can say it in the video if you're not familiar with how to tag, or if it's on a different social media platform, that you'll be able to do that. And so we've even come up with the scripting. We've literally handed them what to say. So I think that that's important. And I think that, Adam, if you wanted to share the video now, it might be a good time.
I tried to get it on the computer and we couldn't get any audio, so I'm just going to play it on my phone to give you a sense. This is Brendan Fontaine. He's a dad of kids in this high school and in the school system. He's very passionate about sports and all aspects of the school department. So he agreed to make this video to give us an idea of what this viral video campaign could look like.
My name is Brendan Fontaine and I'm proud to vote yes.
Put it on your mic.
The new Edward Little. Because we are a world-class city and we need a school that we're proud of. We have world-class athletes and they deserve the best facilities out there. And we have amazing artists and performers and they deserve an awesome performing arts center. So vote yes, vote for the new Edward Little. Let's do what's right. I challenge Faith Fontaine, Adam Hansen, and Beth Hansen to share their 3 reasons why Edward Little needs to vote and the town of Auburn needs to vote for the school. Thank you.
Very short and sweet, very passionate, right? We all heard that in his voice. And that's what we're looking for and will resonate with everyone that watches that video.
Should they say vote yes on 1 and 2?
Well, yes, we're going to get that. Yes, ideally. That's
gonna come off.
That's definitely
Well,
something.
he's gaining some momentum. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be part of the messaging in the
Your
script.
response back when you do your video.
Challenge I'm on no social media, so.
Good for you.
Count on me.
So that will be something, again, we'll work in here because I agree, voting yes on 1 and 2 is definitely going to be important. So we'll integrate that into the scripting. So with any great campaign, we are going to need some physical tools. And this is going to require some funding to be able to make this happen. So what I did is I pulled together similar things that you would see with a political campaign, right? We're all familiar with these. You got bumper stickers, you've got posters, you've got flyers, you've got yard signs, you've got banners on here, business cards. Now, you might ask, why business cards? Business cards are actually going to be used in this case to promote the website. This will be a great way for if you're going around town and you run into somebody and they're like, well, I've heard about question 1, but I'm not really sure about question 2. this is the time to give them the business card. We're going to empower the people that are most passionate about this project from the building committee and your friends and your family and whoever it may be, to be able to spread the word about the website, let people go for themselves to see this, and they will then find the information that's applicable to them. They'll be able to see the questions in advance. Again, getting back to the thing, we do not want them in the booth not having seen the questions or know what they're about. And chances are they may follow up with that other person that gave them the card and say, oh, okay, thanks for doing that. I didn't realize this is what this meant. And then, or they might say, hey, can you help me with what that really means? Or who's in charge of that program? Or what's that all about? This is a great chance to be able to make sure that the audience that we said is going to be on the fence is getting the right information. And that's also a good place to be able to hand it out, whether it's at the parade that I know is planned with a float, or it's just anywhere you are networking. This could be handed out to local businesses that may not be aware of what the impacts are of the new high school. Then we also have pencils here with the new ELHS.org website address. This would actually be a pencil that would say, vote yes on 1 and 2, and learn more at new ELHS.org, vote June 11th. And these would get handed out primarily at the parade on Memorial Day. And it would be a great way for kids to be able to get a pencil, but also their parents, obviously, to see it and go home with them. And then they say, I wonder what this is about. Oh, there must be a new high school. And if they're not aware, I mean, we can't assume that everybody is aware. That is a mistake that a lot of people will make with a campaign is, oh, of course they're going to vote. Of course they're going to vote yes. Some people, I can tell you right now, are not even aware of this question. So that's something we really need to be aware of. And so what I'm going to do here, if we don't mind starting our first brainstorming session, is I'd like to talk about some possibly Auburn preferred vendors, sponsorship opportunities, people that might be willing to step up to the plate that we could think about to fund these types of things kind of from the building committee perspective.
And we're going to do that in open session. We're going to name businesses in open session.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I don't see any postcard mailing type stuff on this.
The direct mailing thing was something we had talked about, and is something that right now we don't have on here. It is something we can talk more about, and that would be something that I can include, again, just being mindful of cost and also making sure we don't have a conflict with how we get the information and distribution of some materials. We have to be careful from the, again, school perspective. I don't know. I want to be careful of that.
Now, I mean, I can't do a vote yes direct mail, but we can do, it's not hard to do if somebody wants to do a direct mail postcard. You set it up and, I mean, you have to work it definitely. The other thing that Walton PTO talked about is a sticker on the newspaper.
Good idea.
The morning of or the day, you can get the sticker on the front of the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another one. But yeah, I think if somebody wants to do a direct mailing, that would have to be organized.
So that would be an
We
item.
will do a mailing to remind people information, do a general information one, which is what we did for the public straw poll and all. I mean, we'll continue to do that.
Go ahead, Bill.
Will there be a direct mailing going out anyway for the budget? Because that's the same budget vote.
I'm going to have to,
Say, can there?
everything I've been doing, I'm going to have to do double up, yes, which is
If there's
fine.
a way to combine the two without crossing any
Exactly.
political boundaries.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I have been talking to several people about a sign across Court Street, the banner across Court Street. There is a local business that has sponsored it before for many events, and you all know who it is. You probably know it best on it. So I would like to see a banner go across the street on Court Street. We can't do it now because of the parade, but we could do it in June on it and have it go across. We have insurance, the city needs insurance, the school department has insurance, the city has insurance, and if we could get a sponsor to put that banner across for us. And I believe the city puts up the banner. The city used to put up the banner. So that's something that hits everybody all the time.
And the library sign.
And the library sign. Now, I was at a meeting this morning, and I was told that we're going to hand out pencils. I think personally, I have a box of pencils that came from my husband's business, and there's 300 of them there. There were 300 5 years ago, and there's 300 of them now on it. I would rather see a squeegee, a thing in the hand that you hold, a basketball that says Edward Little on it, new Edward Little, or a football, or a trumpet, or something that we could have on it as a squeegee. Pencils for $300 to me are going to get lost before you even get off Main Street. That's my opinion.
Fair. We can look at those are options, and we can look at the cost of doing that, so that's great. And I will also recommend, if we do that, to find a sponsor for those that would be tied to that particular item. So whether it could be a bank that wants to say invest, and maybe it's a little piggy bank type thing, that totally makes sense. So I think that if we work together on finding what we want to do, and maybe there's a business that wants to do this, that's what we're here for, and wants to do that because it's great exposure for them, community bank, whatever it may be, we tie it to their brand and they're going to be more likely to do it.
I have been at conferences, and I know that there is a business in Auburn that gave out pencils. They were squeegee pencils with their name on it. And I don't know whether they have any more in their back room or not, but that would be something, something like that.
Pencils are an option. We have pencils. Either can pull up pencils and get the pricing and all that and get that, if that's something we want to do. I was going with the pencils because it does play to the school theme.
Well, I don't mean pencils with lead. I mean
I know, you mean the squeegee,
pencils.
but I know it's the stress relieving. Yeah, I gotcha. I understand. They make those, and that would definitely resonate as far as a school item. There's just a different type of cost. So we can definitely, I will get pricing on the squeezable pencils or anything else. If we have like I said, I think the best thing you can do is find a business or a person that has a tie to the type of item that we want to squeeze, or has some type of application, whether it's a clock. I mean, I looked at clocks. Unfortunately, if you have a little, clock like this, that's when price goes up. But if someone wants to have it so that we can say it's our time, and someone gets a little countdown clock for their kitchen that they can count how long the chicken's been in the oven for, that's great too. So thinking about that, we want to tie it back to the brand, some way that we're promoting either the school, the brand of the company that's going to sponsor it, or also then being able to tie it back to something like the campaign, it's time, so we would do a clock, that kind of thing. So.
Can I ask a question? I appreciate the social media and this kind of thing, but we have a large elder population in this community, and those people want to hear from a person.
Absolutely.
So is there a plan to go to Hasty and the housing complexes? They're going to want to ask questions. They probably want to be educated about this, and I believe there are a lot of those folks who are on the fence because they just haven't been reached through other means.
Absolutely.
And many of them
they vote.
And many of them are alumni.
Right.
Good point.
So for that, I think it's very important. One of the ways that we're going to do that is through these op-eds. Many of those people will read the newspaper, right?
No.
No?
Many of them are not reading the newspaper because it costs too much money right now for them to read, and they're on fixed income.
So one of the other things that we can do, and it's been discussed, is going to these types of places. And that's where, again, tonight, we need people to be able to say, I'm willing to do that, and go with the materials, the business cards, et cetera, so people could log on if they log on to a computer, or read a flyer. If we need a flyer because they literally don't get on a computer, whatever it may be, they need to be presented the information that is going to be applicable to that target audience and presented to them in a way they'll be able to digest it. Is there anyone that would be willing to take on some community outreach like this to reach the older population that we have? Or have ideas or know people, even if we wanted to suggest people? That would be a good thing to do now, if you wanted to talk about that or if you want to think about it. But the more thinking we do, unfortunately, the more time is ticking as well. So I think that's important to mention.
I'll take
did-
on going
Okay.
to some of
want
the
to-
elders.
I will tell you, I have done that in the past with budget, and you do not have a big turnout. I have done it. I've scheduled it, I've gone, and 2 people come.
Katie,
Or 3 people.
have you brought donut holes with you?
Well, I'm just saying when they schedule it, because they want to schedule it, you don't just pop in.
Right.
So they schedule and say this person's available, and I've gotten a handful. I haven't done it in a while. I didn't.
One visit,
Yeah.
I think, you'd reach a lot of people. One visit, too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, sometimes
Why
they don't
are
come
you-
down, they have to come down and.
But
be-
hasty.
You mean the Hasties, yeah, I have done that, and that's a
different-
big turnout. That is,
That's a
that's a huge
different
turnout.
type of person, too. That's not the person that lives in Bucker Arms that's 85 years old necessarily.
But when's their next
You're
meeting,
bucket
though?
hasty, I think.
When's their next meeting?
They meet almost every week, either the age-friendly or
Okay.
they meet very
I
regularly.
don't, yeah, I don't know the schedule, so.
And so Bonnie, did I hear you say you're willing to do
I'll
that?
go to, I won't go to Hastings.
Okay.
But I will go to, I'll talk to Rick Whiting and see when we can get scheduled in. And I will grab somebody with me
Yeah.
to go.
Great. Thank you. That's
And
great.
not you, Katie.
Where are you going?
Oh. I'll talk to Rick Whiting at Auburn Housing and see how we schedule in and
And
go.
we should empower you with something to leave behind.
Absolutely.
So that they can go to a website, they can figure out more on their own, or we even have the questions. We could even print out the questions for them, because
Yes.
again, they're gonna wanna process that information. So I think that's important. And we can also leave the message maps that we have behind, so they can kind of do a download on their own. That's a good point.
And
Do we network with retired teachers that maybe are out in those communities and maybe those face-to-face over coffee? Do we have a distribution list of retired teachers to use that as a front line?
I agree, that's a good audience, that kind of,
They have, yeah, Alfreda's now. Alfreda's morning.
how would we get in touch with that group? Who's the best person to try to do that? Because I think that's a very good
I
idea.
think Elfrida Fournier, who's a city
sorority as
councilor.
well?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
How about like magnets with the logo on it, you know, they have some for the centennial thing.
Magnets are kind of one of those things that gets put on the refrigerator and forgotten about. That's one of the things that we've
See it every
seen.
time you go.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of options, and I'm happy to price out magnets. I mean, that's what we need to do, so it's a good idea if you want to do
we
magnets.
have a local company. I feel really strange talking about businesses in this situation for volunteering or soliciting them.
I can understand that.
With a live mics here.
Yeah.
We do have a business in Auburn that does these types of things.
Understand.
Say the business, somebody needs to go to the business. Want me to say the business?
Shad's,
What?
Shad's. Shad's Advertising
Okay.
on it.
And he graduated from Yale, he
They-
graduated with me.
And his brother did.
That Peter Bonka?
Yes.
So
Yes.
who's willing to go to shop?
I'll go.
Yeah, thank you, Monty.
Do you know that?
I haven't seen him in years.
Last reunion,
Maybe even,
5 years ago.
He's in your class?
Peter is.
Okay. So I guess we'll keep that with Bonnie for now, unless you want to do it?
yeah, Bonnie might be a better,
I'll go to Shad's.
Okay.
yeah. We were also thinking of the EL Lewiston game out to Auburn Suburban. We could promote it there. We charge to get in, and then we donate the proceeds to a local charity. We'll probably have, I don't know how many members, but we could pass out information there and get it across to them.
When's that, Scott?
That's May 28th. It's under the lights. The boys varsity plays against Lewiston. I think it's a home game, last home game. And the girls play just before that on the Sweetser field out there. We get a lot of people. It's a very,
Good point. Excellent. Again, being able to be equipped with a flyer, or the business card is very effective.
Yeah, I can get the grandstand club members to be there, and we could probably get a dozen members and promote it.
Scott, is your grandstand willing to sponsor any of these items?
I'd have to go in front of the, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But possibly the, like Bonnie was saying, the banner across Court Street. They'd probably get behind that. We've just had a lot, we've just paid out a lot because we've got scholarships going now and different things, but,
Well, then maybe some of the smaller items, like the bumper sticker or something like that.
I'll take a phone poll and I'll get back, see what they want to do.
So,
See if they want to.
item support.
And I think a key in what we're talking about here is this stuff's really got to be ordered like next week,
Right. Right.
like early next week. So whatever we're doing, we got to circle back quickly.
For sure, a list of things that we're getting up here, like the bumper
Nope.
stickers. Have we talked about if we think people will put them on their car?
So we think the removal because we think that people might not want to put them on their car.
Right.
And we also are thinking that this sticker would actually be more of an oval, so that it could be put on a water bottle, it could be put on a locker, it could be put on a book, et cetera, that type of thing. A notebook, that kind of thing.
Like this?
A circle, exactly. You've seen them on cars.
Yeah, they
typically.
usually say like initials for a place you
Exactly.
visited or whatever,
Yep.
yeah.
That type of shape would have the logo, would have the website, and it would be more the idea, again, they could put it wherever they need to, but it would get seen. So that's that. But yes, this list is just a very basic, nuts and bolts type of list. I'm happy to go out, and if we wanted to come up with something that we think is going to resonate more or is going to help reach our target audience more, then we should talk about that. So.
So say the same in the Music Association, what are you feeling?
We're trying to decide what we can,
Handle?
yeah. The other thing I'm wondering too, as I look at this prices, which is not huge, but as we reach the next step of fundraising, who do we want to hit up now as opposed to the next step? Because you want to hit the same people every time.
Yep, I think that one of the things we were thinking with this is the idea for local support now that would be available, whether it's through sports or arts, through the booster clubs, or through people that are engaged in this campaign. And we tried to keep the numbers low to make it an easier ask. And that's what this is designed to do. I in my mind, with the yard signs in particular, I think that as I look at sports and I look at arts, where you've got question 2 that's really directly going to impact you, I think that would be an area where if you even split it, to be able to support a sign that says, our athletes deserve turf, or we need 1,200 seats. So you could actually put some customized messaging on that yard sign. We can split that up. But that, to me, is going to be one of your most effective ways that people are going to see, going back to our 7 times they've got to see something. If you drive by a yard sign every day, you're going to see it, and you're going to continue to resonate. And you're going to wonder, well, what is the 1,200 seats if they're not already aware? They're going to go and find out more information, or they're going to think about, well, what is the turf field? I don't understand this. And they're going to ask questions. So that's important.
There is a business in town that we all support if we've run for election. And perhaps we should ask them if they could help us with this. Who is it, Holly? The Little Press people?
I use some in Lewiston.
You use somebody, okay. It's on River Road, on the River Road. I think it's the Little Press.
Oh, the press?
Yeah. Larry, do you know who it is on,
Who's on River Road that does?
the signage?
Signage.
For like political signs?
I can't think of it.
You're talking like the ones with the sticks.
Yeah. Dave, do you know?
What is it?
Is it the Little Press? I don't know.
Okay, so if they're on River Road, I'll just make a note of it, but I think most importantly, we need to try to figure out if we can make this work, and maybe a next step on
It's gonna be a long time.
who we're
though.
going to ask for, or who to do that.
Can Larry do any of those signs, those, like the political signs, Larry? Can you do any of those?
That's what we speak about, yes, I'm not talked to this, and I'm willing to do any of this stuff. If I just figured out some costs here, and, you know, for me to do.
Larry, can you come up
Yeah.
and sit at my mic?
Talk on a-
Well, I know. They'll be texting saying we can't hear.
I mean, I don't know how far we can go with this as far as using the school equipment, but I'm willing to do any of this, and I just did some really rough figures. For example, business cards that are priced out up there at $280. I mean, it's going to cost us $14 to, you know, for the click charge and the photocopier plus the cost of the paper. And so it's going to cost, you know, $25 to do, 1,000 business cards. And it's the same with any of this, $25 for the bumper stickers, you know, compared, and that was, you know, just really quick figures. So, but again, I'm just not aware of how much can be done, you know, using the school equipment. But my feeling is, as long as the, you know, the photocopy is being paid for, the materials are being paid for, and we're covering that, you know, this.
You're being paid for after hours.
Well, you know, that's, you know, the design is sometimes a catch. I'm not a graphic designer. I can do some design work, you know, but I'm not, I think I probably worked with you a little bit, you know, that's, you know, so we designed the EL logo, the new EL logo. We did that along with some help, and you know, so we can do it. I'm not quick at doing it. So especially if somebody could design that, the printing is, you know, is easy. So.
I do know that when I have my political posters made up, you order them more than a month out. Do you, who you go to?
And then you assemble them.
Okay, and assemble them, right. But they're a month out at least on it. So that brings us to the date right now.
So these prices, these were just ballpark prices from a national vendor to be able to get it so that I could have general ballpark.
Yep.
And they can do a 5-day turnaround. So that's another thing we're up against is the turnaround time. So that's something to consider when we do this. And I appreciate that, Larry, saying what you can do, because you're right. You can definitely do it cheaper. But it's, again, services, delivery, all that type of stuff, what we're making the business cards out of, all that kind of stuff plays into these things, but they're just meant to be ballpark general stuff. Go ahead.
To get things rolling, the Music Association will contribute $500.
$500, okay.
Yeah, just an example, we did the New Year's Eve for the city of Auburn posters, the New Year's Eve posters, but those were designed by, I forget her name, right here at the, right here at the city of Auburn, and she just sent me a PDF, and we printed them and paid for them. So,
May I ask about letters to the editor, because that's something that can start happening.
Yeah.
Will there be kind of a template of information that people can include? Because I'd be happy to write one and encourage other people to write them if I had sort of what you think.
Absolutely. So I think that we can, at this point, I don't want to leave this conversation because it's a good one that we're having, but this is the type of stuff that maybe after, you know, as we go home and we digest all this, we need to be able to move forward in some of these areas. But I am going to move on now to the op-eds, if that makes sense.
What are the op-eds?
Okay, so I'm going to explain that. Here we go, right? So roles and responsibilities. We all need to understand that there are certain roles that we can, although we can't sit here and print posters and we can't do some of those things individually, there are some other things that we can certainly do and encourage others to do. So one of those things is going to be op-eds and letters to the editors. I'm going to actually define what those two differences are because it's important to know. So a letter to the editor is what you might see in a paper where you've probably got a 400 word, possibly maybe even 200 word an opinion that someone gives, writing a letter to the editor about the recent article that came out. I saw this article, I don't like this idea, I think this is bad, or I think this is good, and then they typically will share why or their personal opinion on it. That is a letter to the editor. It gets published, it has their name, and what town they're typically from. An op-ed is an opinion editorial, and that is a longer format to be submitted to the newspaper that would be a longer word count, and it would come from a higher person in the community that might be an influencer. It could be a large business owner. It could be somebody that is in the school system. It could be somebody that is, like I said, a business owner. It could be somebody that's a former coach. It could be somebody that people would recognize. So that's more what an op-ed is versus the letter to the editor is someone from the community but doesn't have a higher profile. So you're going to get more space. The op-ed would also typically include maybe a photo of this person as well. So we're going to talk about who those people might be as part of our next slides here. But we're also going to need a person to ask each influencer. So when we identify these people, much like we did with some of the steps that need to take place on the tools, we're also going to need someone here tonight from the building committee to say, oh, okay, I'll ask that person, or I'll empower them, like you were saying, how you're looking for information. I have the information, and it's in these slides that will tell you what they need to do and how they can submit that. And then some of these people also that we identify as influencers should also be used for radio stations or TV interviews. There's no reason why we can't do that and start to, again, find people that have a great message. It could be a coach, it could be a former, someone that was a musician or in theater, and they would love to have seen or love to have performed in a different way. So that's important to know as we reach out to alumni as well.
Actually,
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of letters for political campaigns, there's a time by which you have to have the last letter submitted. Would that be the same for this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's important
They'll
for,
do the same.
that's important for people to know.
The Sun Journal will do that, yes. I think it'll probably be
A week before.
that Friday
yeah.
before the Tuesday.
I believe
We can ask, though.
Gleason Media,
Yep.
when the January thing, the New Year's Eve thing, when the New Year's Eve thing was going on, I had the opportunity to speak to Dick Gleason on New Year's Day, and he said, how come radio wasn't asked to do that? How come radio wasn't down there at the, you know where I mean,
Yeah.
down there? How come the radio wasn't involved in it? Dick Gleason has since passed on, but his business is still going strong, and his family is still involved in it. It has not been sold, so his family is still involved in it. And I believe they do breakfast. Katie, didn't you do breakfast with?
Thinking that.
Yes, they have breakfast with Mark is the
Yeah.
program. Yep, that's on
Did
our
you put-
list.
I did a few years back.
Yep.
And it might be good if somebody here
Yeah.
That's
goes
exactly
to
what we're
that
looking
Good
for.
idea.
and see if we can, it's short term, and I don't know how far they book ahead.
I just spoke with them today. They would be able to take us probably next week. So it's starting next week.
I was already thinking of that, and I nominate Scott.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Scott, is that good with you?
Second it.
Okay. We said you should do a
Oh,
commercial
yeah, you
after
did
the
such a
last
good
one.
job, Scott, when you were speaking. You could do it.
I'll speak anytime, anywhere, for anyone, for 1 and 2 to be a yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
sign me up anytime, anywhere. I just want to make sure that my voice is the correct one and who I represent, myself, the community, the school, the building committee, and I'll wear all those hats. I don't care. This is important. Anytime, anywhere, seniors, it doesn't matter. You know what? We're all in this.
Okay, well, that's very nice of you, Scott. Important, so we'll be in touch, for
Yep.
sure. I think that program is going to be a perfect fit, so
I
that's
would
good.
suggest Tom Platts for an op-ed. He was actually just quoted in Lewis and Auburn magazine talking about the importance of public education. That's one of his top concerns, and he's definitely an influencer.
Oh, God, yeah.
Do you have a relationship with him, or?
Yeah, but I don't know if anybody else
That's
feels.
what we can talk about.
Peter?
I can talk to him.
You'd like to talk to him, okay, so we've got Peter reaching out. There's-
Yep.
great. thank you. And you'll see the information here. It's also in your slides as to what they can do and where they can go to get more information. But in most cases, it's about 600 words as a general ballpark.
Okay.
I think it would be nice if the mayor, he did a fantastic commercial that's seen often on television. And I think that the mayor, if he supports the school publicly,
Yep.
on an ad or like what Brandon did.
Put him on an ad.
He did something like.
Peter's got another one? All right. Perfect.
I see him once in a while.
All right, so we got another one there. So I've got a few names, as you can see here up on the board, obviously. But if there's others here, this is exactly what this is time for, is to think about people in the community.
Are there other people if we're looking at the older demographic, that maybe were community leaders 10, 15 years ago that could come out and support?
There's Jimmy Miller.
I might know him.
You know him. There's Jimmy Miller, and I heard he was back in town. And he was the old Edward Little principal.
Bim,
What?
Bim Gibson.
Yeah, Bim.
But Jimmy was active.
I have no problem getting him.
Say Bim.
Bim?
Right, as a teacher.
I think just
Community leader?
an athletic supporter.
Was
Historian.
I believe Phil Kroll went to Edward Little too.
He did?
So he would be a good person to, right, he would be a good person to get in touch
Peter
with to
Creighton
do
will
it.
see him.
No, Phil at all. I'm happy to do that.
All right, Peter's got his name on there. How about Bim? When I heard the name Bim, is there anybody? Well, Scott, you're going to do Bim? Okay, perfect.
I'll volunteer a city council person.
Okay. Okay.
Bob Hayes will do it. Passionate about it. And Dave Young has been passionate too about it.
Yeah, maybe they do one together.
Absolutely, the duo.
I was going to say one thing that they tend to like them separate, so that actually could give us two for the price of one, so that's fine. They should each write one, just because it will give us more of a chance to do that. So, is that something you're going to do on both?
I was thinking that it would be, like Mr. Fontaine did? Is that what we're
Well, I
looking
think
for?
right now we're talking about op-eds and letters to the editor.
Bob will do a letter to the editor.
Okay.
Would it be more impactful for him to do an op-ed, though?
Tell me again what an op-ed is?
Yep, so an op-ed is a longer format.
It's what Leroy did.
The longer format, picture of you, whoever it is, they need to be someone in the community that is an influencer.
More words.
More words,
David could do that.
more substance.
Bob,
I'm not a man of a lot of words.
neither is Bob, so that's not a good thing. That's not, yeah.
Okay.
He's not a,
I think Holly would be great.
If you could do
Very well spoken
Right.
and well written and.
I second that.
You give me the details of what to say.
there you go. That's good.
I think our message map will come in handy for that as well. That's something we're going to empower the people with, because that's a starting point. It's a major starting point. I mean, there's more than 600 words on our message map. So if you think about that, that's a way to look at how you're going to.
600 words isn't as long as
And it's very
sounds. It's
that's
pretty
right.
short, actually.
Yep.
I can think of a few that would definitely,
Okay, so
I'll write one, but I mean, I can think of a few others too, just with a little bit of help on what to write.
okay.
Ed Comier. Ed Comier, he's moved back to Auburn. Yes. He was president of Harriman. Did he go to Edward Little?
Yes, he did.
And his son went to Edward Little?
Yes.
Right, exactly.
And his son and his daughter, so.
So I think Ed Comier would be one to,
That's what I thought. yeah.
So who could reach out to him?
I can read.
I think that's a good
I
one.
nominate Mark.
There you go. All right. Good job, Mark. All right. Good example.
Bonnie, do you want to loop back with the Democrats, because there was some at that meeting that wanted to write one, like
Yes.
Dr. Elias?
okay. Yes, yes, yep.
I think, I don't know how many op-eds a week they have.
Well, here's what I want to say is,
I just want to do a letter to the editor. I don't want to do a big.
yeah, totally. So one of the things to think about is our timing and also the execution. I've seen many times where there are good ideas and then sometimes it can take a while. So it's important that we have an arsenal built. It's better to have them already ready so that they have them in their hands so they can continue to just put them out in the paper. So the sooner we can get these back is going to be better. It will also allow us to make sure we have them, because the last thing we want to do is not give a deadline. So I'm really going to be asking in the next week to 2 weeks to be able to have these done so that we can get it and be able to execute. So just so you're aware.
I'm happy to be the point person for these. They could all be emailed to me. I'm happy to be the clearinghouse for that. And I'm also happy to copy edit anything. If people would like me to review it or whatever, I'm happy to do that too.
So you'll send out the sort of parameters and instructions for it, and then we'll.
Yeah, I
get it
can
to
do
you.
that.
Sounds good.
Is there anyone else that we want to think of here as we continue to build our list? I have former teachers, students. Quite honestly, I think that people that are most impacted by this, it would be interesting to hear from somebody on the facilities side of things that is dealing with the issues that are going on now, to be able to do something.
Randy?
I have one, not for the facilities thing, but Nick Whittemore was a former student who is in California acting
There you
currently.
go.
And I was trying to make sure I was right in saying so, but he might be willing to write something for us, especially about the performing arts.
Great.
Whittemore?
Yes.
And you'd be able to reach.
Yeah, I'm reaching out now.
I think Colin Britt also would, if anyone remembers Colin Britt.
All right.
Colin Britt, he's down in New Jersey and New York City now doing stuff in the arts. He has a doctorate and stuff and graduated at Yale, so. Colin Britt.
Plays and stuff.
He was in the Today Show, yeah.
He had a little pilot or something. Did he have a show in New York?
He's had a lot of stuff. Yeah. I can
I'm going to talk to Jim Morrison too, and his daughter is big.
Yes.
I'll talk to Jim.
Graduate.
I know somebody else for the arts, Brooke LaChance.
Brooke LaChance?
Yep. She's very passionate about the auditorium.
Oh, nice.
I can reach out to her, but I'll need the details on what she should, how she should do that.
Coming to you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, at least each person gets someone.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
How about, I'd like to tie this all together. Do we have a young, or a parent that maybe has a younger student that would be going to the high school? I think that it's important so that other parents realize what's at stake, the future of their child's education. And I think that if we know any young parents that have a 4th grader right now, or a 6th grader, whatever it may be, or somebody that's going to be going to the new high school.
I know a bunch of them.
Would Darren Avery be a good choice for that? Or is that too close to?
For an op-ed.
He's got kids. He's got little kids.
What do you want the young parents to do, write an op-ed? or-
Write an op-ed. I mean, that's going to be powerful enough, in my mind, is that if they put together the pieces that basically say that my children, our community, have a huge amount at stake in this vote, please, for these reasons, vote yes on 1 and 2, people will understand, other parents that are in that same spot, that they have a huge opportunity to be able to send their students to a brand-new high school.
The Katie and Sam Boss, who are new to this community 2-3 years, and they moved here specifically to build community here. And their children are very young.
Katie and Sam Boss,
John Bozeman.
is that someone you could reach out
I'll
to?
ask John Bausman.
And I was thinking of something, speaking of somebody new to the community, the Shanamans that own Lost Valley.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking of something to do with the turf, and the Auburn lacrosse has been practicing on the indoor turf because of the weather.
Right.
And I was thinking of either getting a video of some of the boys with their Auburn jerseys, like the
Absolutely.
Shanamans and some other kids, if we could do something like that, where we have a lot of letters, but something with the kids that you
Again,
can
the
see.
social piece, yes, the
With the
videos are
turf.
very powerful, we talked
Good
about
idea.
that. So,
We have practice there twice a
Young
week.
parents, and Bill, you had a nice, some people
Are you talking to me?
Well, you could write an op-ed or someone else.
Oh, no, I have some parents listed
Young
too.
parents, yeah, that have the young
parents.
children.
Okay. I was thinking more videos with the kids.
Videos, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
videos.
remember, we have 4 weeks.
Right.
And the paper's not going to publish us every single day.
Nope.
And they're probably going to limit the letters to the editor to 2 a week.
Oh, when they were doing the joining
Let's see
cities,
how
they
many
were
we
every
get
day.
by the 17th. If everybody tries,
This
so
is,
we'll go with who we get on the 7th. We'll email you, we didn't get any, or we got 3, or we got...
and this can oftentimes be like invitations to a wedding. You're not going to get responses
Right.
from everybody. So just be mindful of that. We've been through this. It's better to have more than less.
Now, the other person is Pat Gucci. She was the librarian at the high school, and she's very good at writing letters.
Excellent.
Gautier.
You on that, Bonnie? You on that one? Yeah.
Probably listening.
All right. I think that's a really solid list. Good job by everyone involved. And then I also think that we should think about, again, as I said here, this is, again, what's the best way to help people write an op-ed or a letter to the editor. Okay, so send them an email. Email is going to go out. Adam's going to help you if you have any questions. We'll give you exact word count. It's important that we equip them with the right information, right? Because as we talked about, if they don't have the right information, then they might say something different. So there is an updated message map. Adam has a copy of that.
You all have it, it's underneath your PowerPoint paper.
So that will be really helpful. Yep, that is it, the one with all the words and the bubbles. That is the message map. That will be really helpful because there will be people that are like, well, what do you want me to write about? And I would ask them to write what they're most passionate about, and they can pick from these bubbles those types of things.
Can we go back to, you said 4th, 5th, 6th graders? Can we get some pictures, some letters or something? We can't? From 4th, 5th, 6th graders? Okay.
That's why it's good that if, like Beth's saying, if she initiates it as the parent
Right,
and asks
right.
other parents at a game, do you mind if we do a video on this? And the parents say, great, then
Okay.
fine. But if I go and say to 4th grade teachers, could you do
Okay.
this assignment to vote for the new high school and that? Oof,
No, I already have a few
Yes,
people
so-
in mind
Good.
that have young kids that would be good for that. So I just kind of need to know what you're looking for with the videos.
Video. So we're going to have this script as well. I think that would be a great thing for the viral campaign, as we saw this video here.
So if we get you a video, if I send you a video.
Absolutely.
You guys will do whatever
We'll
you
take
need to
care
do
of
with
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
And it should
absolutely.
be how long? 30 seconds?
We don't want to go more than like 2 minutes, you know, that kind of thing. It can be as long as they need it to be, but we don't want to go too long. So
Okay.
they shouldn't feel pressured to go any certain length. Just tell them to keep it relatively short.
Can you send us that information as well?
That'll
Just
be
what you're
included.
lking for, because I'll be
Yeah.
sending it out to people and let them take it from
Yeah,
there.
Greg has a script for the video, which is quick and easy, and I'll send that out to everybody.
And then the other thing is, this is, here was going to be listening and doing our brainstorming, but the idea was that we wanted to identify these influencers. We've also talked about who's going to contact them, so that's what this was about. Just so we're all aware, I wanted to share this information for anybody that may be listening or watching tonight too, if they want to get involved. These are the areas where you can go and you can actually submit a letter to the editor. You can submit it to the Twin City Times. You can also do the Portland Press Herald. Those are those options there as well. And we're going to help make sure that we follow up with the media. So that's another thing that's important about this. If we do get someone that we really, as we've discussed, is going to be important, we can help make sure that that gets placed.
How about the Auburn highlights? That comes in your mail on Fridays, whenever. And it was started, I believe, by Tammy Griesharbor a long time ago.
Yeah,
And it's free.
absolutely.
And the other thing I was thinking about, you know how you open the front page of the paper? And more you see on that second page of ads on it? If we could get businesses to support an ad on that page and see if go ahead.
I can probably get a business, local mortgage company, because I like your idea about invest in Auburn. So I would be willing to look into that for an ad for the paper.
Yeah, and there's other businesses that do these ads for whatever.
So I think that this is a great idea, and I think that this may be an opportunity. I don't know if Katie's going to be comfortable with it or how we do it, but I think that we need to get in touch with a lot of businesses, and it's maybe something, I don't want to cross the lines because we want to be very careful about the school, what the school can do and cannot do. But I think mentioning it or getting the word out to a bunch of businesses so that they can do the same exact thing, so they could all know that, you know, the week of the vote, we're encouraging people to change their ad to say, vote yes on 1 and 2. That would be imagine if that whole page said, vote yes on 1 and 2. That would be really powerful.
Have you seen the
On a
page?
certain day.
I have not seen that exact
Really,
page.
it's, when you open the paper lately, it's been, that second page has been
So what you do is have like,
necessarily even an announcement.
you could have a picture of Edward Little, the high school, or the proposed high school on a page, okay? And then you sell the ads around the page, and
Oh, I like that.
so it's on every week. I say to Bob, oh my God, they're still doing this. But you sell the ads around the page, maybe 12 ads, so that you have the picture of Edward Little, support 1 and 2, or whatever the message is. So just not your invest company, but the rest of them too.
But if I like the idea, if you had the middle piece being, vote 1 and 2, then the area ads could have, like, we have to have a lot of logo, like, information on it, but we could say, this company invests in Auburn, vote yes.
Right.
For our own ad.
Right, exactly.
So everybody could do their
Yes.
own.
Yeah.
Now, if we put a flyer like that together on your concept, I can bring that to the chamber next Thursday.
Okay.
We're
Yep.
looking for support around this
yeah.
I like that.
ad, and it was pretty, then a contact might be
Yeah.
Bonnie or Beth or whatever. This
Right.
is contact if you want
To get involved.
sell
yeah.
around the picture.
So what's the report about campaign finances on this? And who's going to make the file a report? Because it sounds like there's going to be enough money that's raised and spent. And Auburn does have an ordinance about that.
Yes, it does. Bob and I discussed that today, that it needed, and we discussed it this morning, that it needs to be sponsored by whoever on the signs and whatever else we do.
So is it going to be each individual person on it, or is this a political action committee forming does it come from this group,
It's the building committee,
building committee?
advocated by the building committee, not sponsored, but
Paid for,
advocated.
Authorized by the building committee?
Not paid for, but authorized by the building committee.
Just to
Tell-
keep in mind that there have to be some disclaimer on any printed matter.
Right, so what is the disclaimer that needs to be put on it? When you put a political sign out, it says paid and sponsored by on it. But if you do, this isn't political, it's informational, so what do we have to put out on that piece of literature? Do we have to say advocated, authorized?
I don't know.
We'll find out. Katie and I will find out.
Have the city manager find out.
Get that would be.
I nominate Peter.
I did.
All right.
Have to pull
You're
any
right,
of these
David.
signs
That's a
up.
good point.
And
Good
there
point,
will-
David.
There will be people watching and taking photos and sending it to Augusta and whatever the,
Yep.
believe me, every election.
Right.
Yes, there will, I expect.
And so that's some of the things we've talked about here. Obviously, anything that we would do, we would make mention of that. That's an important piece. And then as I kind of close my formal presentation, we can open it up for continued discussion after this, but I do want to emphasize, and as we've pointed out a few times tonight, timing is of the essence. And I'm going to say this, a lot of people sometimes when they get caught up in campaigns, they forget that the actual vote can be won and lost in the 4 weeks leading up to the election. It is not about election day. That is not what this is about. So we need to make sure, again, to highlight some of the things we've talked about, we need to make sure that people have the new high school on their mind all the time. They cannot hear about it enough. And that's why tonight we wanted to empower people to be able to get involved, to be able to get some of these tools that we're going to need, especially that message map, to be able to get that out there. We can certainly help with these signs and everything that we're going to do. These op-eds are great. The video ideas are great. The more people we can get engaged in this campaign and let it happen organically is going to be the best thing, because of some of the limitations that we do have, that we need to try and make sure that people have a voice, and the strongest voices need to people to be voting yes on 1 and 2. Op-eds are going to be key, no cost, big impact. And then also social media content for that younger generation, and especially the parents right now, I can tell you, is huge. There also are a lot of grandparents on social media, particularly Facebook, that would be very much invested in their children's education. And I know we talk a lot about, again, people doing things. It's important to know that we all have the opportunity here tonight to be able to drive this bus, to use a school term, but we all need to try and get this momentum moving forward. So we're all in the same bus. We're going to try and do the best we can, and we're going to be able to get a lot done. So I want to kind of toss it over to Adam, I think now, who's got the message map. And if we wanted to dive into the questions we had earlier, which were, what if no on 2, what are the impacts? I think that would be good to discuss so we can all articulate that.
We discussed if there can be common language around it that gets sent to us so that we're all saying the same thing.
Good point.
ASAP, that would be great, because those are the questions I'm getting now.
Katie, can we use buses to advertise? We can't put a sign on our bus?
I mean, you can do anything to encourage people to vote on June 11th.
Yeah,
Voting yes,
Yeah,
that is the problem.
You have to be
Can be a problem. There really is no, because we did consult our attorney when we were questioned on a video that we posted, and our attorney said, you have a right to ask for support for a school project. It's a school project. It is not, why would you not be supporting a school project? So I'm going to get clarification tomorrow around when does it turn into a political campaign or not turn into a political campaign. So we have a right to support a project of which we're supporting, if that makes sense.
So we have 37 buses that roll. How many?
Can't put anything on a school bus.
No.
You can't put anything on a school bus?
Safety.
No.
Okay. Darn.
People
Like where you
don't
think-
stop for
Yeah.
them as it is. Any more distractions would not be
Go ahead,
good.
Peter.
You've been through this before with other communities, haven't you? Or have you?
This exact, a new high school, no, but we've certainly helped with actionable items like this.
Okay. I've had some experience with this kind of thing before. We do have to be really careful, having the attorney review
Yeah.
everything that's going out from superintendent's office regarding how it's written. I went through that experience when the referendum took place on Bates Mill way back in, I think it was 1996. So,
Right. I mean, there are some superintendents who say vote yes on the school budget. I have not done that because I was criticized for that in the community, in our community.
Yeah.
There are other communities where the superintendent supports the budget of which they put together.
yeah, I think the key is to provide education for people to have the information they need to have.
Correct.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a good lead-in for the piece.
So maybe we should talk about what happens if question 1 goes down, question 2 goes down, and then we can get into this other message map with whatever time we have left. So I don't know if I feel most confident talking about that. Mark, I don't know if you have a good handle on that?
Yeah, I think, well, I think a couple things. If question 1 goes down, then we've got a big effort to try to understand how we would redesign the building and try to get it back out for a vote. And I can't remember the window of time, but
6 months from the concept approval.
October or something sticks in my head.
It was mid-April, so mid-October would be the absolute last deadline to do a second vote if that were to happen. April
Yeah, so-
10th, so October 10th would be the
That's a challenging, you all remember the effort that went to get to this point here, and it has to be something, I think, substantially different enough for us to finish the design and then to represent it in a way that addresses whatever the issues were that it didn't pass the first time. So that would be a very difficult task to achieve in that limited time frame, so.
What do you mean by represent? Does that mean another straw poll, or does that mean go to referendum?
Well, so if we're going to try to follow the vote within that 6-month period of time, we got to back up to whatever the new vote question is going to be, just like we did this time, to get it onto a referendum. And then thinking back about, so we'll have a extremely compressed period of time to get a new design.
And we have to redesign it, reprice it, understand where all
Exactly.
that shakes
And we have to go
out.
back to the state?
The state will definitely need to approve the new design before it goes back out to a question.
So if question 1
Yep.
fails, then we need to redesign it in a short window and go back to the state for approval before we get the question back on the referendum.
That's my understanding. Yep, the state's not going to support us going back out to a vote without having approved whatever that design is.
And what if we don't make that deadline? What happens?
In absolute terms, if it goes with what the state process is, you lose the funding and it goes back out to next projects on the funding list.
That is a worst-case scenario in my mind. We talked about being at the top of the list. That's a huge risk. Somebody else could get it, right? That's essentially what could happen. So that's why it's our
And we
time.
would have to understand why did they vote down question 1? They
How do
don't
we
like,
understand
they
that?
don't like the 105 million state dollars, or they don't like the 5 million in local dollars?
Right.
Because you wouldn't have to redesign the whole thing if it was the local dollars that were the issues. But we probably wouldn't know.
I have to say, even the most skeptical people have all said, we all want a new high school.
Right.
So I'm very optimistic about question 1.
I agree.
Bare minimum.
Yep.
We talked about taking a survey on the people going the way out, and some of the city councilors said, what didn't you like about it? But I'd rather ask the question, what you liked about it?
Right.
Because I wanted to have those things in the plan that people like, that really are passionate about more. So I don't know if you get that process elimination, or I'd rather hear something good than to hear something bad.
I don't know who's organizing volunteers at 5 polling to get that information.
I have no idea.
So, okay, so what happens if 2?
Okay, so you're asking now if 1 gets approved and 2 doesn't.
And so that one, we've talked about a little bit, but that means simply that we will move forward through the design process without those additional items in the design. And so that doesn't throw us off significantly. The state will watch the design progress without those additional items. So.
The only change is if you want to go back out to referendum to try to approve question 2.
Right.
So people need to understand that we not only get the building, but we get the fields as part of the state package. Plain ordinary fields.
Correct.
The grass fields.
Correct.
So we get the building plus the plain ordinary fields.
Right.
And what happens with the auditorium, that seat question that everyone's kind of had?
So in that case, if the question about the additional items in the auditorium doesn't pass, then you either try to revise a second question before October, or we move forward designing a much smaller space. We call it the glorified lecture hall.
And we can put, well, like Holly said, we can put a short little blurb about it, because you can go, if we decide as a building, the city council, whatever, decides, well, we're going to go for second question in referendum in October, beginning of October, and we don't want them to do any, the architects are on hold until that goes, the project will be delayed opening. We will not open on time. I mean, now, the fall of 2023 is now gone.
Yep.
Because if the auditorium is a main component of the school.
Yeah.
So we can't design it until question 2 goes unless we decide we're not, unless the building committee or somebody says, well, we think the community would go with this size, redesign with this size, and then go out again. But the stadium and so forth like that, that doesn't have to be redesigned, that's just, it's going to be the building aspects of it.
Well, the stadium won't be a stadium.
It won't be a stadium, no, but if you put it back in a second question in October, that won't hold it up.
Bring your lawn chairs or
Right.
lights.
To that point, we may want to consider some type of exit polling if we are hearing something that is, oh, I voted no because I didn't want this. It would be valuable to know why they didn't, because if it's just hypothetically, if it's because they didn't want the turf fields, then there could be a lot of people that wanted the theater, but we wouldn't know that they wanted the theater because we wouldn't have asked that was what the differentiator was. Something to consider. Hopefully we don't get to that point. But.
So the public would have this information. If question 1 passes and question 2 fails, and you choose to revamp question 2, does that have to go back to the state for approval before the referendum?
No.
Yeah, it just normally would, because that period of time that we would be moving, we don't have to go back for the state board approval. We would work in concert with the Department of Education as we move through, but no, it does not need to get.
Okay.
Right.
And I think it's important to mention also the costs of building are just continuing to go up and up.
Exactly.
We saw what happened, I can't remember what town it was in that they.
Gore, I think, because I saw
A
2 big
school
articles.
recently.
I was going to ask you after. I mean, they're delaying projects because the estimates are coming in so high.
So to recap for someone potentially listening or in our messaging, if we go back and have to redesign, adjust, et cetera, we are going to be costing taxpayers more money.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
That's an important message for people to know.
So we'll get a compilation of these, all of these points sent to us, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
We'll clear it through Scott Brown, saying it correct.
I also
So we'll
think,
put it together and have the DOE confirm what we're saying is accurate.
I think would also be good too now, if anybody has any questions about the current message map, we've got to make sure it kind of passes our test, because before, that's what we're talking about, yep, with all the words on it, is to make sure that we all understand it, because if we don't, or we have a question, we could be asked that very question. So I think that's an important step here.
I think particularly in that funding box, if people want to read down through that and give us your feedback about whether it makes sense.
But it's not breaking out the 2 questions here. Like, it's not giving them, like, this is the total package that you're talking about.
Correct.
Adam, I think one of the things people may do is they're going to look at the $26, and they're going to 61 and 94, 92, they're going to add them up. That's how some people are going to look at this, you know what I'm saying?
Someone else mentioned that, and I said, I don't know why they would, but the other thing is, I don't know how to explain they don't need to in a very limited space.
Because we had this discussion before, when the first one came out. I said, I added them up, my husband added them up. The way it was, that's the way we interpret it. And then you had some language in there that said it would be an increase of.
We did, and so we can put that back in? I tweaked this earlier this week. We were updating all the numbers, and I tweaked this. But if people think people are going to say, okay, in 2020, in 25, 26, I'm going to be paying 26 plus 61 plus 94 plus 92 plus 90, then yeah, we'll put the old language back in.
In many cases, I think. If you did the incremental net increase, if you know what I'm saying, like it's 26, and then whatever the incremental increase
Yeah.
is to the next
Yeah,
year.
we can go back to that.
Does that make sense?
I think it'd be good to hear
Yes.
from Adam how we would say it. So like, explain that in 2021 and 22, you pay 26. Then what do you pay the next year?
So you want it to say, in 2022, 23, you would pay an additional $35 over the prior year for a total of $61.
Written in the other.
Right.
It is, and part of what I was trying to accomplish is, because we haven't really highlighted something we should highlight, which is after year 3, the cost starts to go down every year. So I wanted to show the first 5, and it was going to be very hard to have a big enough font to show the 5 years with all of that. But we can do it. If it's
So
needed, we can do it.
I would look at this and say that over the next 5 years, there would only be a slight increase of, and maybe put the total number of whatever the increments add up to.
I see what you're saying, like over the first 5 years of the
5 years.
project, your taxes will go up a total of.
Would only increase,
Yeah,
would
instead of
only
doing each
increase
year.
by, I don't know what the
Yeah.
number is.
You're saying add all the numbers up and put that number on there?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
No.
I think that's a bad idea.
No, people want to know.
Because
per
people
year.
will think, oh, that's the amount every year that I'm going to pay.
That's fair.
This is the worst-case scenario, right? No fundraising, no
Correct.
contributions.
Correct, and the valuation never changes.
Bill?
What if you just put the word only before the dollar sign? Only 26, only 69, only has to be a powerful message as well.
Oh,
Yeah, only, I agree with that.
only.
Still think people are going to
As I said, add, they're not accumulated.
Values.
I think what we need is a one kind of sentence statement that would allow someone to explain this, because you won't be able to explain this to somebody in person without the map.
Without getting stuck on this issue, and this is an important issue, I know there are other things you want to do, I'd suggest that a few people get together and try to work it out. so
Now,
that
we had it worked out in the
accomplishes
last
what you
one.
want to do.
The last
Yeah.
message map that has been going out, and it went home to everybody, had it more broken down. I think Adam was trying to be more clear and concise, and I think we recognize we're going to have to go back to the more detailed explanation.
Yeah, I'd try a few examples and give them to people that aren't involved.
And that's how we got to the last one.
Do it
If I had the current one,
Yeah.
you would all say, that's the one.
Yeah.
Because
So
we
we'll-
did work on it
so
with
we'll go
about 10
back to
different
that.
people.
Okay.
Well, let's go back to what we had.
Yep.
Because everybody understood, in our office, we went through everybody, and that's how we ended up with what it was. So, we'll go back.
Is there a reason it's 8.5 by 11?
Just for ease of use, but would you suggest a different size?
It just feels really dense.
It does.
A lot to kind of take in. It's hard to digest. I appreciate, if we can make it less words without losing the content and keep it at this size, but is there any value in making it 11 by 17, just to give it a little more white space and a little bit more?
We do have it on, one of the reasons we have it on the website to print, if somebody wanted to print it. Typically, people don't have 11 by 17.
And to mail it, it's easier to mail.
Mail it, yeah, but I agree, and also we think about our older population that might have trouble putting their eyes on this. I think that it would be worth doing a larger, maybe if we go to these older places, that we should bring an 11 by 17. That's a good suggestion.
Now that we're talking about 11 by 17, that's almost a placemat in a restaurant. So we could provide them at Rolly's Diner, at whatever places for wherever,
I agree with you.
for a placemat.
Absolutely. No reason
Sorry,
why not.
Katie.
Or reduce some of the
No, I think
bullets.
it was
You know, I
something
think
else. It
of,
wasn't that.
like, an
It wasn't
economic
something-
impact, the bottom two are one, you're basically talking about one thing.
I would also say we probably don't need the planning process on there.
It's just
This is
thinking
already
the same
done.
thing. People don't care about that
Yeah.
part.
About the what?
The planning process.
box could
It's
probably just
done,
be
it's over.
eliminated.
One thing I noticed here is, and this is some of the feedback that I've heard, is I don't see a box for education, which is really important when we're talking about a new high school. So I would definitely agree that the planning process doesn't need to be there.
I bring up a lot when people ask about the lack of labs, I said, the school now is so ill-equipped for the kids that, it's, like you said, it's the education part of it, I agree.
Yeah, and we don't have a box for that.
I think it sounds like we could replace that planning box, because I agree, there's obviously some elements that are very important to the education that people are not going to be aware of that might be the current situation. So we can compare the current situation in a way to say that we
Right.
don't have the standard. That would be important. Is there some, I guess we can work on figuring that out. Okay.
We can cut it.
And Lisa suggested two-sided. Is there a reason that it can't be two-sided?
Or trifold?
On
just
the opposite
spread it
side,
around?
we have been, on the opposite side, we've been putting pictures.
Okay.
You just don't see the other
Just need-
side. The
yeah.
other side, we have pictures of the floor plan, we have the pictures of the outside plan. We have this. This is on the opposite side. When we hand it out, we always have pictures on the other side.
Can I give you some feedback from someone that's not here?
Sure.
About the mailing. So my husband
That's the one.
Yeah.
looked at it and he's like, I can't even tell. I see there's all kinds of colors. This is a waste of print because I can't see what you're trying to tell me.
I mean, the plan on the back.
Yeah, it was on a mailing that we had and there was, the floor plan was on it.
I think it would be better to use the language to talk about what's going
Yeah,
on.
I think so. That's just somebody that's not here.
And I would say there needs to be a balance. There's some people who aren't going to read anything and want to just see a picture. So I think a balanced approach, but we can use different, this is what we were doing, so we can create something new.
And on something that size.
That's what I mean.
That probably works, but by the time you print it
Oh,
on
yeah.
here and it was like on a cover and it was just a bunch of
Exactly,
colored
yeah.
blocks.
We tried to put too much on that, yeah. Yeah,
I also
would agree.
think too, another message we're going to start to integrate in here is the actual, we have the voting date on here, but as we know, we are going to start integrating the vote yes on 1 and 2 language
Right.
that could go on the
Yep.
back or anything. So again, we're hitting people over the head with what they actually need to do after they read this.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think it's been a very successful meeting. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if we don't have any other questions, I think we can adjourn. That sounds good, everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Good conversation.
Don't forget your assignments.
Yes.
Who got the assignment for the banner?
We do not have, do you have a?
We're still on the air.
Ken, we're off. Thank you.
Awesome. When do you think you might know that?
At the latest Monday.
I'm out
And that company you mentioned about the banner, Pepsi Cola.